feeling well. This sequence today is something to do if you have maybe completed a run or a cycle ride recently, or you've done maybe a HIIT workout and you're feeling quite tired, your legs are feeling quite tired, or maybe if you just want a really slow down, stretchy flow. So this is going to focus on stretching out a lot of the leg muscles, so calves, quads, hamstrings, Achilles as well. Some of them might feel a little stronger than others, it just depends how tight you are in your body. So just listen to the options as I give them out to you or explain them to you, and know where you can go today. So hopefully you're feeling a little bit warm. I've just been on a bike ride, so I'm feeling quite warm and ready to stretch. If you aren't, then I just recommend maybe doing a few sun salutations just to warm up the body before you come into your stretches. Okay, so we're going to get started. It is straight away into a downward facing dog. This is a really good pose to stretch out the whole of the back of the body. So when you're ready, bring your hands onto the mat, spread your fingers nice and wide. Make sure you're pressing down through your index finger knuckle and your thumb knuckle before tucking the toes behind you. Lift the belly towards your spine before you start to lift your hips up, and that will just engage the core there. So when you're ready, lifting the knees, keeping the knees bent as you press your belly back towards your thighs. Start to roll your sit bones up towards the ceiling. So as you'll notice in your body, depending on how you're feeling today, you'll see whether you can get your heels down towards the mat. Maybe you can't, and that's absolutely fine. You can always keep a bend in your knees. So when you're in your downward facing dog, we're looking for that press through the hands, and as you press your chest back towards your thighs, neck is relaxed, so you can shake your head yes and no here. And we're strong through the shoulders. Roll those shoulders back towards your hips. So you've got a nice firm foundation through your hands, your arms, shoulders. And then lift those hips a little bit higher. See if you can find more length down the backs of the legs. So we've got a really long line from the neck all the way up to the hips along your spine, and then all the way down the backs of the legs. Now again, you can bend your knees if you need to keep drawing those hips a little higher. With every exhale, maybe press your heels down towards the mat a little bit more. Now we're just going to take another breath here in stillness before we bring some movement to our downward facing dog. We're just trying to find those nice long lines down the backs of the bodies, from the heels all the way to your fingertips. Take one more breath. And exhale. Now start to bend your right knee as you press your left heel into the mat, and feel that stretch down your calf on the left side. Maybe feel it more in the hamstring. Again, keep pressing through both hands evenly to press chest back towards your thighs. And then again, we're going to swap over, so right heel down, left knee bends, and press through the hands. Really ground that right heel down towards the earth, find that stretch through the calf. And then just take this a little bit quicker, so moving with your breath. Drop one knee into the centre, then the other, as you press the opposite heel down to the mat. So this is just a really nice stretch to do for the whole of the back of the body, but mainly through those calves and hamstrings. It's really good to do in the morning to wake up the body. And then obviously after any workout you've done, running, cycling, jumping around, skipping. And then we'll find stillness once again. Just a note here in your downward facing dog, when we've got our feet at hip width distance, you can test that by bringing one heel into the arch of the other foot. It should be about a foot's distance away from each other, and then check it with the other side. So you've really got that hip distance apart there. Just taking one more breath here. Exhale. Bring your right foot to the centre at the back of your mat, and then cross your left leg behind your right. We're going to start to walk your hands back to meet your feet. When you're there in your fold, make sure both toes are in alignment, heels are in alignment. So it'll look a bit funny, because a little bit odd because your feet are crossed, but it's almost like, or the opposite way around, but it's like you're in a forward fold. Feet about hip width distance apart. Lift your belly and fold from the hips. Now you can always have your hands out further, you can always bend your knees slightly if this is too much in your legs, but this is a really good stretch for the IT band, so that muscle that goes from the outer hip to your knee, your outer knee, and you should feel this on the IT band, probably more so on your right leg, but you might feel it in your left as well. I certainly do. That's because I'm really tight in both IT bands here. It's also a really nice stretch to release the lower back, so if anyone suffers with sciatica, this is a really good stretch to release that sciatic nerve, as you tend to get kind of cramps and pain down the backs of the legs. Check that the weight is in both feet evenly and it's spread from the heels all the way to the balls of the feet. One more breath here. And exhale. Start to walk your hands a little bit further forward. We're going to drop onto the knees, keeping your knees crossed. Right knee on top of your left. Drop the knees down to the mat and walk the feet out so they're mat width. That was my knee. Mat width distance apart. Tops of the feet pressed down onto the mat. And you're going to slowly sit your hips back onto the mat, keeping your right knee directly above your left. So this is called cow face pose. Now you might find that you can't get your hips down onto the mat, in which case either bring a block or a cushion underneath, or a book underneath your hips, just to get them a little bit higher, and then you'll feel that you can maybe sit a bit more comfortably in that pose. So wherever you are, we're going to tuck that tailbone and really ground through both sit bones. Again, check that that right knee stays over your left. Spine is nice and long. So you'll feel this stretch in the outer hips, and again along the IT band, especially on that right leg now, but also this is a really good stretch for that piriformis muscle, which goes from the top of your glute, so that big muscle in your bum, top of your gluteus maximus, underneath it, and then it kind of stops at the top of your femur. So at the back of your thigh, top of your thigh. So it's a really important muscle. We use it a lot for running, cycling, again, lots of HIIT workouts. If we're doing those jumping lunges, which I did a lot of yesterday in the workout, and I'm in a lot of pain. So it's just very, very tight at the moment. So it's a really good stretch to work that muscle. And you should feel that maybe at the top of that right glute. If you're not feeling it too much and you want to start to lean forward, you could start to walk your hands forward onto the fingertips and lean your chest over your right thigh. Keep pressing your sit bones into the mat and you'll feel that a little bit more into those areas. And we'll take one more breath here. Exhale. And then start to walk yourself forward, just push yourself up onto your knees again. We're going to come to our tabletop position. Untuck the feet and just swing the hips gently side to side to release out here through those hips, through your lower back. And then we're going to tuck the toes behind us, coming into a toe stretch. Don't worry, we're going to do the other stretches on the other side, but we're going to do a toe stretch first. So, lots of people find this very uncomfortable, and I did when I first started doing this stretch, but honestly the more you do it, the easier it becomes. So we're sitting the weight onto our heels. Check that all 10 toes are touched, so that means maybe picking up your pinky toe and just tucking it under here. We tend to try and take the weight out of the heels by arching the lower back a bit and lifting the bum up, but tuck the tailbone, draw your belly to the spine, and sit your weight back onto your heels. You might also feel this in your quads. So we're going to stay here for about 5 rounds of breath. This is a great pose to do if you're, well, for anyone actually, but running especially, because we kind of grip with our feet a lot running without realising, but a lot of walking, and just obviously our feet carry us around all day. And we don't often stretch them. So it's a really, really nice releasing stretch to do. Releases tension. You might carry a lot of stress and anxiety and worry without realising in our feet, tensing up through our feet. Also in our balances, you might notice that your toes grip on the mat, trying to find that balance. This is a really nice pose to help you find that feeling of spreading the weights evenly through all your toes. I'm talking a lot to distract from this pose. We're going to take one more breath here. And then as you exhale, start to come forward. Place the hands down, release the toes and just gently tap them on the mat. Release here. And then we're going to sit back onto our heels. From here we're going to take a hero pose. So this is for your quads. We're going to just walk the feet out so they're about mat width distance, or actually more about hip width or outer hip width. So we're just going to come to sit our bum onto the mat, keeping your knees together and the tops of your feet onto the mat. Now this you might feel is too much already on your knees, in which case you can again bring a block underneath your hips and just sit your bum onto the block. Keep your knees pressing down towards the ground. Tuck your tailbone again, just like we did in that pose before, sitting on our heels. And again, you might stay here. You could feel this already in your quads if you're really tight there. Otherwise, you may start to walk your hands back and lean yourself back a little bit as you press your knees into the mat, and keep tucking and scooping your tailbone forward. So that just protects your lower back, draw your belly into your spine, but also increases that stretch across the tops of the legs. So this is also a really good stretch for the tops of the feet, the ankles. You might be feeling it there as well. So wherever you are, we're going to stay for another 5 breaths. And again, if you're on your elbows, you might want to come a little bit further down and rest onto your back. Maybe you take your hands above your head and grab opposite elbow for those super flexy people. I'm just going to stay here today because my legs are very tight. Did lots of lunges yesterday, so my quads are sore. But every day is different. So I did this yesterday in the morning, I did this pose and I was on my back. So it's just interesting to know how different you feel every day. Take one more inhale. And then as you exhale, draw your belly into your spine as you press into your hands and come all the way up. And again, we're just going to come back to that tabletop position. This time maybe just release the feet, swing them gently side to side. And then press into the hands, tuck the toes behind you and come back into your downward facing dog. And again, finding that length down the back of the whole of the body, so from fingertips, up the backs of the hands, along the arms, send the shoulders to the hips, lift the belly, and press your chest towards your thighs. Lift the tailbone, lift those sit bones high up towards the sky. You can bend the knees if you need. Take an inhale. And then as you exhale, take your left foot to the centre and take your right foot behind the left. Start to walk your hands back. We're coming into that forward fold again. So remember, your feet are about hip width distance, toes in alignment, heels in alignment. And then fold from the hips, lifting the belly, allowing the head to be heavy, taking any tension out of the neck and the shoulders. And again, we notice where that weight is in the feet. So can you transition it a little bit more to the balls of the feet if your weight is all the way back in the heels, and vice versa. The weight's in the balls of the feet, send it back slightly. But with every exhale, see if you can lift your hips a bit higher. Again, sending your sit bones to the sky. So when you say sit bones to the sky, when I say that, try to think about that crease of your bum lifting up. I always find that easier to kind of think about the motion there. So that crease of your bum is trying to lift higher as you press firmly into the mat. Take another inhale here. And exhale. Feel that stretch down the left IT band, especially in this pose, through the lower back. Start to walk your hands forward. And we're going to drop the knees once again. Left knee stays over the right, coming into our cow face pose. Walk the feet out. tops of the feet on the mat as we sit the hips back either onto a block, a cushion, or maybe you can get your sit bones down. But wherever you are, remember that left knee is going to stack over the right. So these are our ears of the cow. That's how I think about it anyway. So those tops of the feet are now facing forward as we've rolled our hips back. Sit bones are glued to the earth as you sit nice and tall, spine is long. And again, we feel this in the outer hips, through that piriformis muscle. If you wanted a little bit more, then start to walk your hands forward onto the fingertips as we lower the chest down onto the mat, onto your left thigh. But press your sit bones back, your hips back. So don't allow them to come off the mat. Take another inhale. And exhale. We're going to stay here for 3 more breaths. Take 1 more inhale. And then exhale, come back to centre if you folded forward. And then we're going to roll over onto the knees once again. Find that tabletop position. Walk the knees to hip width distance and just swing your hips gently side to side. And then we're not coming back to that toe stretch, you'll be pleased to know. But we are going to sit back onto our heels, just for a breath here, setting up for an Achilles and a calf stretch. So keep your hips sat back onto that right heel as you bring the sole of your left foot to the mat. Now you might be able to get that heel really, really close into your glute without lifting that left heel up. You may need to walk that foot a little bit further forward. So it just depends on the how tight your calf is, how tight your Achilles is. So as close as you can towards your glute, get that heel in towards the body here, the glute here. So we're going to sit tall, and then as you exhale, you're going to press the weight into your chest, almost really into that left thigh, as you press the left heel into the mat. So we're trying to find that point where you get the stretch on the left calf and Achilles. So you kind of have to play around with this pose because for some people the foot needs to be further away, for others it's closer, maybe the foot's out slightly. And also depends on how much weight you press into that knee or that thigh on the left side. So this is a bit of a funny one. Sometimes people don't really feel this much in the leg, and that's fine. But just play around, maybe move that foot around just to see what feels good for you. We're just going to stay here for another couple of breaths, really pressing that left heel down. One more inhale. And then as you exhale, walk forward. You're going to bring your left foot to the outside edge of your left hand. So we're in our lizard lunge. You might want to tuck the back toes and just walk that right knee back a little bit more to find a deeper stretch on the right hip flexor. So if you want to feel it more into the hips, you can always open that left foot out slightly and then come onto the knife edge of that left foot. If you want to keep an engagement and squeeze through the inner thigh to work the inner thigh and also the outer thigh and hip, then keep that left knee squeezing in towards your left tricep, your choice. But you should also be feeling this on the right hip flexor. So the more you press the top of that back foot into the earth, and you lower that right hip down, the more you'll feel that in that hip flexor there. So that psoas muscle that connects our torso to our legs, have one on each side here on the right and left. You'll be feeling this stretch into that right psoas here. So that muscle does a lot of work for us even when we're sitting. So not just running and cycling and walking, but even sitting it can get really, really tight. Obviously as it's drawing those knees up to the chest in that sitting position. So it's a really, really nice pose to do regardless of whether you've been doing exercise or not. It's just a lovely opening pose that counters all of that pulling up motion. So we're going to stay here for another inhale and an exhale. And then slowly we're going to just press our weight back into that right knee as you take your left foot back, left knee down, and walk the hands back. And then we're going to just do that same couple of stretches on the other side. So keep the weight onto that left heel as you bring the sole of your right foot to the mat. And again, bring that heel as close into your right glute as possible before that heel lifts off the mat. So again, it might be further away from you, maybe closer to you. So sitting tall here before you exhale, and then lean forward as you breathe out, pressing that right heel into the mat, pressing the weight into that right knee. And again, you may notice that you're maybe tighter on one side than the other. Maybe you need to walk that foot out slightly. This calf is a bit tighter than my other one, so I can't press as much weight, I feel like, into that right knee. But it's a really nice stretch to do because I find that I tend to stretch my hamstrings and my quads a lot after, a run or a cycle ride, but I forget about my calves and my Achilles. And your Achilles take a lot of strain, I think, when you're running. So really nice one to stretch out. I'm going to take another inhale here. And an exhale. And then start to walk yourself forward again. Both hands down, step your right foot to the outside edge of your right hand. And again, you may tuck the back toes and just slide that left knee back even more. Again, option is to turn the right toes out and come onto the knife edge of that right foot, bending the knee out slightly. If you want more of an engagement in that inner thigh, outer thigh and hip, then draw that knee in towards your right tricep. And then again, press into the top of that left foot as you drive that left hip down to the mat. Feel that opening in your psoas. It's a really, really nice opening stretch here. Breathe deeply. Take 2 more breaths here. One more inhale. And an exhale. Start to walk yourself back. Send your hips back. Draw your right knee down and sit back onto your heels. We're going to scoot the bum over to the right side and just swing the legs out in front of you. So this is coming into our seated forward fold, Paschimottanasana in our Sanskrit. So you'll just notice that I naturally do that by I pull the weight out from underneath me, so that fleshy part of your bum, you want to try and pull them out. Good thing to get into the habit of doing because it just allows you to be able to fold forward a little bit more. If you find that your hips, or you still find it difficult to kind of sit upright with a flat back in this position, then you can always bring a block underneath your sit bones. And again, that just lifts the hips and makes it easier to fold forward. Your knees may be slightly bent here if you're really tight in your hamstrings. Important though to keep the feet flexed for this pose as we're coming into a kind of active stretch here. So belly is lifted, pelvic floor is lifted to help you keep that length in your spine. Sides of the waist are long. We're going to take an inhale and reach the hands up towards the sky. Maybe those heels float off the earth. You're engaging those legs so much. We'll take an inhale, and as you exhale, fold forward and reach for the outer edges of your feet. Or maybe your hands just place either side of those legs. If your knees are slightly bent, that's fine, the hands may be back here. Wherever you are, we're keeping that long spine. So if you're seeing here, I'm rounding in my spine, but what I want to do is keep that length, send my chest forward on the inhale, and then as you exhale, lift the belly and see if you can fold deeper. Keeping that length and sending those hips back behind you. So again, imagine someone scooping your sit bones from underneath you and drawing them back as your crown of the head reaches forward. Grab onto the outer edges of those feet for more grip to draw you forward. If your hands are on the mat, maybe you gently drag your fingertips on the mat to draw yourself forward. We'll take 2 more breaths here. Find length on the inhale. Fold on the exhale. 1 more breath in. Exhale. And then slowly roll all the way back. That's a really nice stretch for the hamstrings there. Okay, we're going to spin to face you. You might stay facing forward on your mat, but we're just going to take a wide-legged forward fold now. So I find these quite difficult because I'm very tight in my inner thighs. So I sometimes like to have a cushion, which I'm actually going to use now, underneath my sit bones. Just again, so I can do the whole motion of drawing my hips back easily, more easily, drawing my hips back to allow me to fold forward more. But you'll see my toes are still flexing back to my face, so legs are still engaged. Roll those inner thighs forward and back, so open out through those hips. Sit tall on the inhale. And then as you exhale, start to walk those fingertips forward. Again, keeping that flat back, just like we did in the pose before. So lengthening on the inhale. Maybe folding deeper on the exhale. My toes are still flexed. Legs are engaged. See if you can press the backs of the knees into the mat or into the earth. So keeping that engagement. And you'll feel those inner thighs and your hamstrings maybe turn on a little bit more here. We're going to take 2 more breaths. Last inhale. And you'll notice here I've managed to get my elbows down even just after about 5 breaths. So this is one of those poses that if you hold it for longer than a few minutes, you'll really start to notice how deep you can go into this pose. So I recommend holding this if you want to. Pause the video, hold it for like 10 minutes. It's a really, really lovely pose to relax into. Alternatively, while you're watching TV or whatever you're doing, reading. Take 1 more inhale. And then slowly start to walk yourself back to center. Bring the hands behind the thighs and just draw those feet in. If you've got a block or a cushion underneath you, just remove that and put it to one side. I'm going to spin back to face this way. So I'm going to come down onto the mat now, just rolling onto your back. Heels are drawing in towards your glutes. We're going to take a little supine twist here. So bring your arms out into a cactus shape. So elbows are in line with your shoulders, 90 degrees with those arms. Bring those knees to 90 degrees, so knees are directly above the hips, and take an inhale. As you exhale, drop your feet or your knees over towards the left side. Glue that right shoulder into the mat. So if you find that your knees only go to here because you're tight in your right IT band, then you can always place a block underneath your knees. Otherwise, allow those knees to fall to the earth. And then gaze maybe goes over your right shoulder. If you want a little bit more here, especially in that IT band, then you can extend that top leg and reach for the outside edge of that right foot. But keep drawing your right hip back into its socket. Glue that right shoulder down, so we're getting a gentle twist here, but also a really nice stretch to the edge of that knee on the right side. Take 1 more breath here. And then exhale, release that foot if you've got it. Use your core to draw those knees back over your hips. Take an inhale. As you exhale, send them over towards the right side. And again, I'm just going to kick my pillow away. Again, we keep the left shoulder down onto the mat. Gaze goes over the left shoulder. You can always have a block underneath the right knee if you need. You can always place your hand as well on that knee if you want to just squeeze them down a little bit more for a deeper twist. Option then again to extend that top leg. Reach around for the outside edge of that left foot and draw that left hip into its socket to find length on the outside edge of that leg. Take 2 more breaths. And 1 more inhale. And exhale, release the foot. Draw yourself back to center. And then you can draw your knees into your chest. Give yourself a hug. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze them in. And then when you're ready, you can either place the feet down, you can draw feet wide and knees together in the center of your mat. 1 hand on your heart, 1 hand on your belly. Or you can always come to a seated position if that's more comfortable for you. Just going to spend a minute here connecting with your breath, with your body. Notice how you feel after those stretches. Are you still holding tension or tightness somewhere? If so, with your exhales, can you just release a little bit more into the earth? And then when you're ready, start to bring some movement back to your body. So maybe waving your knees gently side to side. If you're seated, maybe take a gentle twist or rolling the shoulders and wrists. We're going to meet in a seated position, top of the mat. Keeping your eyes closed or your gaze soft. Bringing your hands to your heart center. Taking a cleansing breath. Breathe into the belly. And sigh out. Exhale. Namaste. Thank you for letting me guide you in this practice. If you have done this video, well done. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you're feeling a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more stretched out through the legs. I do recommend obviously keep practicing those stretches if you found any of them really, really difficult. They're the ones that you need to do more of, and I promise you, you will get more flexible the more you do them. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day ahead. Namaste.